Is it on? Oh, sorry. Is this
Yeah,
on?
I can do that. Yeah, that's on. And we are on live already.
Okay.
Right?
Hello. If everyone will just bear with us, we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. For those of you who haven't had a chance to sign the condolence book, that's outside the door. There's also some drinks, coffee, tea, water, etc., and we'll have some light refreshments afterwards. So we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Hello, excuse me. Thank you, everyone. If everyone will find a seat, we'll get started just in a second. Here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. So it's a hot summer day in Washington, D.C. We're crowded together in a small room. Everyone's hot. We're all sweating. So in other words, it feels like we're back in Dhaka, right? or in Islamabad. So I think it's only appropriate. My name is John Danilowitz. For those of you who I haven't met before, I have several incarnations, which I'll talk about a little. But today I'm here greeting you, welcoming you on behalf of our organization, Right to Freedom, which Bill and Ambassador Mushfiq Al-Fazal Ansari founded a few years back. So you'll hear more about Right to Freedom in the coming moments. Just a couple logistics, admin. We're hoping to go for about an hour, maybe a little bit less. We'll follow that with some refreshments for those who can stick around. There's water, juice, coffee, etc. outside. I hope most of you had a chance to sign the condolence book outside. If not, please take an opportunity to do that. We've also been collecting some online condolences. We'll share that, obviously, with Bill's family going forward. I've asked several people in advance to speak, but if there's anyone else who would like to say a few words, we'll have time in the schedule to do that, so I'll kind of announce that. I want to thank the team from Right to Freedom who organized this event. I don't know, is Deepu here or is he outside working? No surprise, our colleague Abdurrahim Deepu is outside working, as he's been doing tirelessly for several days to bring this together. Of course, we couldn't have held this event without Mushfiq here, so we're very happy that Mushfiq decided to come back to Washington after his stay in Dhaka to join us before going back to assume his important responsibilities in Bangladesh. I want to also recognize members of the Right to Freedom Board, Syed Badr Alam, Saiful in the back, who's been with Right to Freedom from the beginning, was one of our guiding lights and one of our strongest supporters. A more recent addition to the board, Fazli, in the back, he's the guy in the background. He's the guy who doesn't want the limelight, doesn't want the credit, probably doesn't want me saying his name, but we wouldn't be here without you. And we have some other board members from Right to Freedom who couldn't join us. I also just want to remind everyone, particularly those of you who will be speaking, that the event is being both live streamed, assuming the technology works, and recorded. So what you say can and will be held against you. I mentioned to a couple of you, we initially started planning this as a memorial service, but in recent days I realized that was exactly the wrong approach. This isn't a sad occasion, it's not a memorial service, it's not a funeral, it's a celebration. So all you have to do if you don't know this is a celebration is take a minute and look at some of the photos on the wall. Some of you are in these photos in more or less recognizable form, as is Bill, but you see him in Bangladesh, you see him in Pakistan, you see him in Africa, you see him in the State Department, and you see him in some places in some outfits. I don't know exactly how to describe those, so somebody will have to kind of do the historical research to figure out where and when was Bill Milam at that time. So anyway, we're here to celebrate Bill's life, a life well lived. I had the honor of knowing Bill for over 35 years. He was my first ambassador in Bangladesh. I worked for him again in Islamabad. Briefly, I worked for him through Pat Haslick in Washington when I was homeless and needed a job in the department for a few weeks, and they found a place for me to sit. And like many people in a State Department or Foreign Service career, every once in a while you'll have somebody who calls you up and you can't say no to them. Gita was one of those people in my career, but Bill was another one. So when Bill called me out of retirement to say, hey, I have this organization my friend Mushfiq and I have founded called Right to Freedom, can you be part of the board? Don't worry, it's no responsibility. We don't really do that much. I said, sure, Bill, I'm happy to do that. Little did I know that Bill would abandon me and Mushfiq would abandon me Thankfully, Deepu never abandoned me, so we've kind of kept things going. I'm so happy to have so many of Bill's friends and colleagues from different chapters of his life gathered together, share some memories, honor his life, his legacy. The other thing that the board of Right to Freedom and we've been talking about is how we honor Bill going forward. I can't go forward without mentioning Ali Riaz, who Ali, for those of you who don't know him, is a very skillful operator because he never wanted to be formally associated with Right to Freedom. He said, no, John, I don't want to be on the board. Don't give me a title. But everything that we did, Ali was involved in and was behind. So now that he's back from his service in Bangladesh, we're redrafting him to work with us. And what we want to think about is how we can honor Bill's life and legacy, continue the important work that he cared so much about, promoting freedom around the world, not just in South Asia, but beyond. So before we get into the program, which will commence with a short video, just if you could all just join me in a moment of silence. Again, not to mourn, but to remember. Okay, thank you very much. We can roll the video. And this, I have to say, this video is great.
And there are diplomats who fill a moment in history. Bill Milam was the second kind. For nearly 4 decades, he carried American diplomacy into some of the world's most fragile and consequential places. And he carried something else with him too. A deep, abiding respect for the people he served alongside. Born in Bisbee, Arizona, and raised in Sacramento, Milam earned his bachelor's degree at Stanford and a master's in economics from the University of Michigan. In 1962, he entered the United States Foreign Service, beginning a career that would take him to Martinique, Liberia, London, Cameroon, and into the heart of American international finance and energy policy in Washington. In August 1990, Milam arrived in Dhaka as United States Ambassador to Bangladesh, a country standing at a fragile crossroads, emerging from years of authoritarian rule into its first real experiment with democracy. In a moment when the country could easily have slipped further into instability, Milam's presence helped restore a sense of hope to a struggling population and helped steer the nation away from the path of becoming a failed state. Those who knew him in this era didn't just see a diplomat doing a job. They saw someone who believed in Bangladesh's future enough to stake his own credibility on it. He was later remembered as one of the very few American Foreign Service officers ever entrusted with ambassadorships in 3 different countries, a rare honor that reflected the trust placed in his judgment. His service didn't stop there. From 1993 to 1995, he led the American delegation that negotiated the landmark 1994 Desertification Treaty, a global agreement to fight land degradation, later ratified by the US Senate. Then came Liberia, in the wreckage of a 7-year civil war. As chief of mission from 1995 to 1998, Milam helped guide the country through the end of that conflict toward free elections and a democratically chosen government. And in 1998, he was named ambassador to Pakistan, serving through one of the most turbulent stretches in that country's modern history, right up until his retirement in 2001. He didn't stay retired long. After September 11th, he answered the call again, spending 9 months helping build the international framework for rebuilding Afghanistan. Years later, he stepped in once more, this time as interim head of the US mission in Tripoli, Libya. Along the way, the State Department recognized him with its highest honors, the James Clement Dunn Award, a Superior Honor Award, 2 Presidential Service Awards. But ask anyone who served with him, and they won't lead with the medals. They'll tell you about the man. Retirement never meant retreat. As a senior policy scholar at the Woodrow Wilson Center, Milam kept writing, kept teaching, kept asking the hard questions. His book, Bangladesh and Pakistan, flirting with failure in South Asia became required reading for a generation of policymakers and scholars trying to understand two nations he loved enough to critique honestly. His commitment to democratic values didn't stop at the page. He became the founding president of Right to Freedom, an organization built to carry forward the same principles he had spent a career defending: human rights and democratic governance. He wrote columns. He mentored younger diplomats. He stayed a friend to Bangladesh and Pakistan alike, long after his passport no longer required it. Bill Milam passed away on February 17th, 2026, at the age of 89. He leaves behind more than a record of postings and awards. He leaves behind nations that are a little more stable, institutions that are a little wiser, and countless people in Dhaka, in Monrovia, in Islamabad, in Washington, who were better for having known him. Diplomacy, at its best, is not just policy. It is presence. It is showing up again and again for people and places that need someone to believe in them. Bill Milam showed up for nearly 60 years. His was a life given in service and a legacy that endures.
Well, thanks so much to the team that pulled that together in a relatively short period of time. And thanks very much to Bill's children, to Fred and Erica, who shared some of their personal photos with us. So the room is full. That's a good sign. Deepu, I don't know if we can find a couple more chairs, but again, this is Bangladesh, so we're all kind of snuggle, together here. So it's great. So as I mentioned, I'd asked a few people in advance to prepare just a few words, and really the guiding principle here was to have some folks who had known Ambassador Milam in different phases of his life and career, and then we'll open the floor before we have Mushfiq give us some concluding remarks, and then we have refreshments. So first I'd ask my good friend Ambassador Osman Siddiq to come to the podium. So Osman, please.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to introduce any of our speakers because in this room they don't need any introduction.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for inviting me, and it's a great pleasure, dear friends of Ambassador Bill Milam, to be here today. Thank you. Unlike many of you here, I don't think I had a personal interaction with Ambassador Milam while he had his stellar service at the State Department as one of the greatest diplomats. However, I came to know him later, and especially during the last 10 years during the tumultuous time in Bangladesh when he was heading Right to Freedom. He served in many countries and with dignity and compassion, but somehow I feel that he had a special connection. He had a special affinity with the people and country of Bangladesh, for which I think we all owe him a debt of gratitude. When he gave leadership to the Right to Freedom, it was a very difficult time in Bangladesh. The government in power at that time was a monolithic fiefdom. It was where they managed fraudulent and fake elections. Human rights were not there. Opposition leaders were chased. They were either hiding or they were on the run. I also hear that there were things like torture rooms which was so unheard in our history. However, when Bill Milam took this position as the president of the Right to Freedom Foundation, I asked him, and because I met with him at different forums, I said, "This is a tough challenge, sir." He said, "Absolutely. But if you don't come forward, we need to have a voice here." And he knew what are the pitfalls for what he was trying to do. But good thing is that he was helped with a few very great friends and lieutenants like John Danilovich, like Ambassador Mushfiq Ansari, Professor Ali Riaz, and others. John took things on his chin. He was reprimanded, he was threatened, he was personally insulted, but he never gave up. And one of the reasons why he didn't give up was because Ambassador Bill Milam had his back. Mushfiq Ansari, Ambassador Ansari, was all over the place speaking out to the State Department, White House, United Nations. We used to joke that which one is the clone Mushfiq, because he's everywhere. But he served relentlessly at a personal cost. And why did he do that? Because Ambassador Milam had his back. So the video says a lot about his glorious achievement, his glorious milestones in life, and I don't want to repeat them. But let me touch a little bit about the person that I knew a little bit. Bill Milam was a no-nonsense person. You know, he never suffered fool's paradise. He cut through the bullshit like anything else. And when it came to results, he was adamant, and he made sure that they were there. He never feared of the difficulties. He looked at it as an opportunity. You know, the July 4th revolution of 2024 was probably one of the most significant, unique movement that I have seen in my lifetime, where innocent, unarmed students, rickshawalas, peasants got on the street talking about injustice. And almost over 1,400 of them laid their lives. And I think more were unaccounted for. I salute them because they paid the ultimate price. But I'd like to recognize people like Ambassador Bill Milam, John Danilovich, Mushfiq Ansari, who played a critical role in amassing world opinion. There were a lot of bloggers in France, in New York, who played a critical role in making sure that the word gets out. And ultimately, they prevailed. And as I said, Ambassador Milam never minced his word, and we thank him for his courage and leadership. Now, we have come here to celebrate his legacy, to mourn his passing. But the biggest gratitude and celebration to his legacy we can do is if we continue with his work. There's a lot to be done. The situation in Bangladesh is not hunky-dory. There are a lot of things, a lot of improvements that needs to be made in the areas of good governance, in the areas of human rights, in the areas of economic feasibility. The banking sector is in shambles. So I feel that what Ambassador Milam laid the groundwork for us, it is for us to continue. And that would be the greatest tribute we can pay to his legacy. I want to end with a quote that I really respect and I really love from one of our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin. He said, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thanks. If I could now ask Ambassador Marcia Bernacat to say a few words.
Thank you, John. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. I have to say that I was not fortunate enough to ever work with or for Bill Milam, but that didn't stop him. He and I shared both service in Liberia and Bangladesh, but not at all at the same time. Thanks to Mark Grossman, I got my first toe in the water in South Asia as the Nepal and India desk officer, which at the time was a very schizophrenic portfolio. It probably still is by all accounts. The aspect of Bill Milam I'd like to talk about is his role as mentor. Somebody, a good colleague, rightly said that to serve in the Foreign Service is very much like an apprenticeship. You can bring all kinds of skills and knowledge with you to your to the career, certainly to the assignment, but it's from others who have practiced our craft and practiced it well that we learn. We learn from those who don't practice it very well as well. But Bill made it his point, and we had a whole generation of people serving in South Asia. Don, I'm looking at you, and Tezi and Howie Schaefer, and Bill was certainly among them, who sought out those of us who were having our first tours in the region, even back in Washington, to mentor us, to make sure we understood the complexities of this region. When I was finally fortunate enough, I tried to bid on Bangladesh since my first tour, and finally ended up there my last tour. Bill once again sought me out and gave me a full appreciation for what it would be like to serve as ambassador in Bangladesh. The era that I served in turned out to be not quite as tumultuous as the one that Bill served in, but Bangladesh offers so many tumultuous moments. And he gave me a true appreciation of the history, a history that was lived day in and day out, without which context you could not possibly hope to do your job very well. But he also gave me a sense of the promise of Bangladesh. And in spite of, Osman, as you mentioned, so many horrific events over the years, and certainly I served during some of that as well, that he made sure that I understood and opened my mind to the fact that Bangladeshis were so fervently defending their democracy and would not let these things pass, and that there was so much potential in the country that too many people continued to see through the haze of 1971. So I want to just pay tribute to the enormous contributions that Bill made to so many of us who served in Bangladesh, and helped make us better practitioners as diplomats. Thank you.
So looking at so many friends gathered here, I can't help but think of stories. Looking at my friend Chris Rich toward the back. Chris and I were junior officers together in Dhaka, oh so many years ago. And I'm probably speaking for both of us that we were a little bit scared and intimidated by Ambassador Milam. So one moment I'll never forget was Mother's Day of 1990, I guess, when I got called up to Bill's office. And I was like, oh, what did I do? I guess it was 1991. What did I do wrong? You don't, as a junior officer, get called up to the ambassador's office. So Bill and then his deputy chief of mission, Lee Coldren, whose photo's back there, sat me down and said, John, you're going to Chittagong. Because there had just been a cyclone, the U.S. government was responding with Operation Sea Angel and was setting up a forward operating base, and they needed somebody from the embassy to be the liaison. So I, of course, said I would go. I went home to tell my wife. She said, John, I'm pregnant. I said, great, congratulations, I'm going to Chittagong. I stayed for about 2 weeks before Nancy probably convinced them to bring me back, and then we sent Chris down. So Chris and I, participated in that. And then seeing Michelle Sisson, my boss, my deputy chief of mission in Islamabad, Bill took a rare vacation from Islamabad, went back to the U.S., and General Musharraf decided he didn't want to just be General Musharraf anymore. So while Michelle was calling Bill to tell him his vacation was cut short, we had to keep an open line to Washington. Back then we used phones to communicate, so we had an open phone line to the operations center. So one of my most vivid State Department memories is sleeping in Bill Milam's office, the ambassador's office. And again, as a relatively junior officer, you never really got to be in the ambassador's office after hours. So I confess I did a little bit of snooping in the ambassador's office in Islamabad. Didn't find anything untoward, but that was one of my claims to fame, is that I slept on Bill Milam's couch. So anyway, those are the kind of stories that I've been thinking of. Again, happy memories. I'd like to now invite Dr. Ali Riaz, again, somebody who has a lot of happy memories with Bill, to share a few words. So, Ali.
Thank you, John. It is indeed an honor to be here, particularly speaking about Bill Milam, because I've come to know Bill Milam in 1990 when I was a graduate student at University of Hawaii. And soon after the upsurge that deposed General Ishaq, I landed in Dhaka for my field research. And the topic that I was working on was the political economy of martial law in Bangladesh. And I never expected to see US ambassador. But I thought, let me take a chance and talk to him. Bill Milam responded, and he asked me to go and have lunch with him. And that was the beginning of my interaction with Bill Milam. And I thought we had this conversation. Then he asked me, what am I doing exactly? What is my plan? And so on and so forth. Thereafter, 9 years later, as a BBC correspondent or BBC's broadcast journalist, when I was working in London, I was traveling in South Asia, in Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India to do a radio documentary for the Bengali service. In early 1999, I was in Islamabad. So I thought again, since Ambassador Milam is there, maybe I can try it to see him, whether he would remember me. I thought so many years and so many things happening in his life, he's not going to remember me. And it is, as you can remember, early 1999 in Pakistan, after this nuclear blast and all sorts of. Yet he took my call and asked me to have a coffee with him. Surprised me very much. And most surprising thing was that the first thing he asked me, what happened to your dissertation? Did you get it published? So I told him that, yes, I did. I don't have a copy with me, but I would do provide you at some point. Thereafter, we lost contact, but when I moved back to the United States in 2001, soon after that, we got reconnected, and thereafter, for 24 years to be precise, we have been in touch closely. For me, that's why to talk about Ambassador Milam is very emotional, because over these years, each of my trip to Washington, though I live in Illinois, I've been working with many organizations here, especially from 2004 onwards. Each of my trip, it was an unwritten schedule for me that we would meet for a dinner. We didn't have to plan it. Bill knew, I knew that we are going to meet. And we have been having conversation all around. And that's why it's a personal loss for me. It is very much a personal loss for me. We are celebrating his life, but at the same time, the person that practically acted as a mentor for me, not seeing him in Washington is very difficult for me. And it is because his initiative, I ended up here in 2013 in the Woodrow Wilson Center. Between 2004 and 2013, when I came here, we met. He was working on his book. We shared a lot of things. For whatever reason, he thought that talking about Bangladeshi politics with me would somehow might help him. But on the other hand, I was interested by his farsightedness and all these things. And this when I talked to him, we met, when we talked, especially in 2013, when I was working at the Woodrow Wilson Center, and Michael, if you do recall those days, and in our days, over lunch, over coffee, occasional dinners, we have been talking about the situation that Bangladesh was walking into. But by then, I of course have read the pieces Ambassador Milam was writing. So the second thing that I would say, we have lost a voice of conscience. Ambassador Sponsitic mentioned that he never missed a word. And he faced difficult time and difficult situation. A lot of you know that after 2014, for almost 10, 12 years, he was not given a Bangladesh visa to go to Bangladesh. Yet he continued not only with the right to freedom. But what is interesting to me, one of the most important thing is that from 2004 that I knew him, he was very much outspoken. And after 2009, 2005 and 6, as Bangladesh entered into a crisis, and we worked, I met him, we have been in on various occasions and various events trying to see what is coming. Ambassador Milam was worried that what might happen to Bangladesh, because what I have seen in his work, some of which I have mentioned in my tribute, that throughout the whole period I have seen that he had a very clear-eyed and clear understanding about the Bangladeshi politics, where it is heading. In 2013-14, when a lot of people were confused and many analysts were not understanding and dazzled by the manufactured statistics of economic growth that Bangladesh is doing great, I saw Ambassador Milam who could cut through this and see that an emerging autocratic regime in Bangladesh, and he made it very clear in his writings. And that is the kind of thing sometimes landed him in trouble. He was vilified, harassed, yet remained firm on his point. In one of the years, what he wrote in 2019, in 2014, that he anticipated that Bangladesh situation, the political situation, was going to get down to a very difficult path. And he took it upon himself that he would be the voice to speak to the world, to the international community, what needs to be done. He took us along with him in a journey, and the journey never ended. He mentored us. Here is Ambassador Mushfiq Ansari. We worked together with Ambassador Milam. And each and every turn, what I have seen is that his firm belief in democracy, his commitment to human rights, his sensitivity towards the environmental issues, but most importantly, he fell in love with Bangladesh. When I say I lost a friend, a mentor, I also understand that Bangladesh lost a friend too. He was a friend of Bangladesh and the Bangladeshi people. His voice in international media helped those who are fighting relentlessly in Bangladesh for democracy under an autocratic regime. Each and every time that I went to Bangladesh or talked to Bangladeshis, they were looking forward to what Bill Milam said. They hoped that his voice would be raised, and he did. So the legacy of Ambassador Milam, to me, to everybody, is to continue his work, to be with the people of Bangladesh, who are fighting, who are suffering, and who are suffering, and who are fighting for democracy. And he continued his work. And I think that is the legacy of Ambassador Milam. To me, to everybody, is to continue his work, to be with the people of Bangladesh, who are fighting, who are suffering, and who are fighting for democracy. who aspires to see a democratic Bangladesh which values the human rights and, of course, the potential of it. While he was very critical of Bangladeshi political system and raised voice, never ever I've heard he had lost hope on the Bangladeshi people. Never ever. He always thought Bangladesh has an excellent future that can be achieved, materialized. And that is what I think is his legacy insofar as Bangladesh is concerned. I'm really fortunate, I feel honored that I had the opportunity to be with him, to work with him, to hear him, and to be mentored by him. One thing I would like to request Right to Freedom, that for a long period, for more than a decade that I know for sure, he has written commentaries in Pakistani press. I would like to see that those are collected and published as a book, because if you follow those one, that would show not only his thought, the trajectory of Pakistani politics and South Asian politics, as well as what needs to be done. That is what is something, that is what I expect that his legacy would continue, that he will continue what he started, what he endured, and would be, I'm sure, that he would be successful, because Bill Milam was always optimistic. Thank you.
Thanks, Ali. I see some young researchers, scholars, journalists in the room, so if anyone wants to take on that task, talk to me afterwards. I also just want to take a moment to acknowledge the presence of colleagues from the Pakistan and Bangladesh Embassy. I appreciate your taking time to join us. I'd now like to ask Michael Kugelman to say a few words. So, Michael?
Thanks a lot, John. And I should say that Bill always spoke so highly of you, and for very good reason. I think we can all agree. I'm truly honored to have this opportunity to say a few words about my friend, Bill Milam. Those of us who've worked in Washington for many years can relate to just how transitory this city can be. And I'm referring mainly to the professional community in D.C. There are many people here who come and go. They work in government, they move on to law firms, they move on to think tanks, the private sector, consulting, and so on. Maybe they'll leave Washington, go abroad, come back, and so on. Over the 20 plus years that I knew Bill, this was not the case with him. Bill joined the Wilson Center as a fellow soon after he retired from public service. He was there in 2005 when I started working there, and he was there with me until the Wilson Center's tragic demise in 2025. There were few people, very few people at the Wilson Center that I knew and respected more over those 20 years than Bill. He was my colleague, my friend, confidant. He really helped me learn how to navigate Washington as a young professional, how to problem solve, how to be a successful professional. He also taught me a whole lot about South Asia, which happens to be the region that I've spent my career studying. And Bill is really one of a very small number of treasured contacts, and they also include Bob Hathaway, who I know is watching on the live stream, that I trusted and valued and confided in over several decades as a mentor, seeing him as a mentor. So Bill, he was much more than he might have appeared to people that didn't really know him well. You know, on the outside, he might have seemed gruff, aloof, even a bit of a curmudgeon-like figure. But I know, and I know all of you here tonight know, that was not at all who Bill Milam was. Bill was first of all very funny. He was actually quite hilarious. He had one of the driest, most acerbic senses of humor that I've ever come across. He was also very principled, and this has been covered already. He was a fierce advocate for rights and democracy, as we saw through his leadership of Right to Freedom. In his post-government career, he wrote and spoke forcefully about rights and democracy. This earned him a lot of respect from a lot of people, even if it meant he was never going to be Sheikh Hasina's soulmate. After India revoked the special autonomous status of Jammu and Kashmir back in 2019, Bill wrote an article likening the move to Hitler's actions in Czechoslovakia and Milosevic's actions in the Balkans. He really did not hold back in his views. he was also extremely humble. This is a former U.S. ambassador to Pakistan and Bangladesh and other places who played a significant role in some of the more significant, consequential U.S. policy decisions in South Asia and elsewhere in modern times. But to me, and I think so many of us could agree, he acted like just another guy. He insisted you call him Bill, not Ambassador Milam. You know, he set aside as much time as you needed when you wanted to talk to him. He was very accessible. He was very generous with his time. And one of my favorite things about Bill was something that he would say over the phone to me when we'd speak on the phone. There'd be quite a few times when he would call me. I couldn't take the call. It would go to voicemail. He'd leave a message, often a very long one, asking me if I could call him back if I had a chance. When I'd call him back, every time he would always say, "Thanks for calling me back." And if he happened to call and I picked up when he called, he would always say, "Thank you for taking my call." A former senior diplomat, an ambassador, thanking a young professional for taking his call or for returning it, it doesn't really get more humble than that. Bill really treasured his time at the Wilson Center, which was really his home away from home during his last few decades. When we were all sent packing on that terrible day in April 2025, it changed him. It took away the structure and the social interactions that he was able to count on for so long. And I really miss my former Wilson Center colleagues, some of whom are here tonight. But there are very few that I miss more than Bill, one of the very few colleagues that was with me from my first day there to my very last. I remember, and I'll end here, during those chaotic moments after we were all told we'd have to pack up our stuff and leave, Bill ambled into my office, he sat down, he took a deep breath, he looked at me and he said, "Michael, what's going on?" And I remember he had a look of concern on his face, but also one of very mild bemusement, given how surreal and suddenly things were happening. And I think this was Bill at his essence, at his core. Someone with empathy, but also someone always willing to bring a touch of lightness to the darkest moments. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michael. So my friend Ambassador Osman Sadiq was joking with me on the way in that if you threw a dart in this room, you'd probably hit an ambassador. Not that we would ever throw a dart at an ambassador, but I was just wondering in my own mind, who is an ambassador first, Mark Grossman or Farouk Sobhan? So I'll let you two fight that one out later. But Farouk, as another friend and mentor, and Emily Screes, please, if you could say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking John and the board of the Right to Freedom for organizing this event. John would recall that I had been a strong advocate of having an event to remember Bill, whom I'd had the pleasure of calling a friend from the time he was ambassador in Bangladesh. I just returned in '91 from being ambassador to China, and during the 6 months that I was in Dhaka before going off to India as ambassador, I think we must have met at least a dozen times. Many of these meetings with Bill will be remembered for the very searching questions that I would be subjected to. It occasionally felt as though I was being cross-examined. As previous speakers have mentioned, he was very much a no-nonsense man. He gave it to you straight between the eyes. So Bill, in some ways, was an acquired taste, and I would say that we got on extremely well. He had a weakness for a good Sauvignon Blanc, and we occasionally shared a few of those. It was therefore a pleasant surprise to reconnect with him during my spell as a visiting professor at George Washington University. I was at the Elliott School teaching a course, a postgraduate course on South Asia. And my colleague at GW was Bill, who was teaching a course on an undergraduate course on South Asia. So we came to an arrangement under which Bill came and addressed my class, and I returned the favor by giving a lecture to his class. The one thing that, and there have been references to this, Bill's dry sense of humor. And there were occasions when our conversations would be punctuated by this dry sense of humor. And equally, one found it in his relationship with a wide cross-section of people, starting with his students. I was the proud and happy recipient of his weekly articles, which he wrote for the Friday Times. What I found very interesting was that here was Bill writing for a Pakistani publication, but frequently many of his articles were about Bangladesh. So in a sense, Bill was a kind of unofficial Bangladeshi ambassador to Pakistan, in addition to having been the US ambassador. And again, what makes many of these articles to remember and to think about was he pulled no punches. So he gave it to the Pakistanis, as I said, straight between the eyes. As was mentioned, he was a firm and strong believer in democracy and human rights. And whether it was Bangladesh, Pakistan, or for that matter, India, he didn't hesitate to speak out his mind. And this was something during our countless meetings in Washington and occasionally in Bangladesh. And I was so happy that shortly before he passed away that he could make one last visit, which came after a very sizable interval, because until the visas were stopped, he did come a few times to Bangladesh and did connect with his friends. So I was happy that he and John and a few friends from the Right to Freedom could visit Bangladesh, and he was wined and dined, starting with the head of government, Professor Yunus, who received Bill with great warmth and friendship. He was undoubtedly a friend of Bangladesh, and when he criticized Bangladesh, he did it with a sense of his own commitment to the country and to its future. Last night I was having a look at the oral history that the State Department did, which runs to, in Bill's case, 145 pages. I think it could easily be converted into a book. The cyclone and the the tremendous work that the U.S. Government did through its relief mission, and you were a part of that, features prominently in his book. So even during those 10 plus years that Bill was unable to visit Bangladesh, we would meet here in Washington, occasionally at seminars, occasionally at the Wilson Center, and occasionally over a drink. He would bombard me with questions about Bangladesh and how to set things right. He was a friend of Bangladesh who will be remembered as we remember so many other friends. And we hope that the right to freedom does continue the good work that was initiated by Bill. He will be fondly remembered by his many friends all over the world, his many friends in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Farouk, and all the speakers. We're going to be wrapping up in just a moment, and Ambassador Mushfiq Fazal Ansari will say a few words, but I know there was at least one or two of you who had asked to say a few words, so we're all set? Okay. Well, after we finish the ceremony, I hope you can stay for refreshments, and among ourselves we can share more memories, stories, and please, again, sign the condolence book. If you have something longer that you want to write, again, we'll be sharing this. And now I have another job for these young researchers and scholars. Somebody needs to mine Bill's oral history as well. So without further ado, I will invite Mushfiq to the podium. And I have to say, even before I met Mushfiq, I thought that I knew him because every conversation I had with Bill Milam for several years started off with, I was talking to my friend Mushfiq, and then the conversation would continue. So, Mushfiq. And we have a deal that Mushfiq can't cry and I can't either, so hold him to it.
Thank you, John. I hope I don't cry. Even I brought a written speech. And thank you very much, John, for hosting this event. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the distinguished diplomats, scholars, writers, colleagues, and many longtime friends of Ambassador Bill Milam who have joined us to celebrate the life and legacy of an extraordinary man. Standing at this podium to speak about Bill is not easy. With Bill's passing, Bangladesh, and indeed all those across South Asia who cherish democracy, human rights, and freedom have lost a friend. And I have lost much more than a colleague. I have lost a mentor, a trusted advisor, and someone who stood beside me during some of the most difficult moments of my life. Ambassador Milam served as the United States ambassador to both Bangladesh and Pakistan, but for Bill, South Asia was never simply a diplomatic assignment. He embraced this region with genuine affection and deep understanding. Bangladesh in particular occupied a special place in his heart. He cared deeply about its people, its democratic aspirations, and its future. I first met Bill nearly 12 years ago at the Wilson Center in Washington, where he was a distinguished scholar. After an event, what began as a brief conversation became a long discussion about Bangladesh's democratic crisis, the shrinking civic space, and growing challenges to press freedom and human rights. That conversation never really ended. We stayed in close contact, exchanging ideas and discussing what Friends of Democracy could do support for the people of Bangladesh. In 2018, together with Bill and a small group of committed friends, we founded Right to Freedom, the organization under whose banner we are gathered today. Bill became our founding president, and from the very beginning, he provided not only his distinguished name, but also his vision, leadership, credibility, and unwavering commitment. Today, although I am no longer directly involved in the organization's day-to-day work, I am deeply grateful that my dear friend John Deluge has continued Bill's legacy as president, together with Abdul Rahim Dipu and many dedicated colleagues who continue advancing this mission that helped Bill helped build. Bill believed that democracy is not self-sustaining. It requires constant vigilance, principled leadership, and courageous voices. That belief shaped everything we did at Right to Freedom. Over the years, we organized countless public and private discussion, policy dialogue, and strategic meetings. It became almost impossible to imagine a Right to Freedom event without Bill. More often than not, he was either moderating the discussion or presiding over it. His presence elevated every conversation. His wisdom gave credibility to every initiative, and his calm, thoughtful leadership inspired everyone in the room. Together, we also launched South Asia Perspectives, a Washington-based magazine dedicated to thoughtful analysis of democracy, governance, and regional affairs. Bill graciously agreed to serve as its editor. His intellectual rigor, careful judgment, and commitment to honest debate shaped the publication from its very beginning. Despite the seriousness of his work, Bill possessed a remarkable sense of humor. I remember one event vividly. The distinguished Bangladeshi journalist and editor Nurul Kobi joined us virtually from Dhaka. Because of internet problems, his connection suddenly disappeared, and in the middle of the discussion, a few minutes later he joined. Without missing a beat, Bill smiled and said, "For the first time, we have seen gentlemen who disappeared and then come back." Everyone laughed. But behind that gentle humor, was a painful truth. At that time, enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killing had become tragically common in Bangladesh. Bill had an extraordinary ability to use wit not simply to entertain but to expose injustice and remind us of the realities we could never afford to ignore. The democratic backsliding and authoritarianism in Bangladesh genuinely troubled him. He followed developments closely, spoke out when necessary, and believed that silence in the face of injustice was never an option. Though Right to Freedom, we collaborated with institutions such as National Endowment for Democracy, Wilson Center, and many others that shared our commitment to democratic values. Whether on Capitol Hill, at Harvard, or in meeting with policymakers, scholars, journalists, and activists, Bill graciously gave his time, shared his wisdom, and encouraged a new generation to believe that democracy is always worth defending. What impressed me most about Bill was not simply his remarkable diplomatic career, but his character. He was humble, despite his achievements. He treated everyone with dignity and respect, as Michael said. He listened more than he spoke. He disagreed without being disagreeable. And he always reminds us that principles matter for more than power. I owe him more than words can express. Whenever I faced uncertainty, Bill offered wisdom. Whenever I felt discouraged, he reminded me why our work mattered. His encouragement strengthened me, and his friendship sustained me. The greatest tribute we can pay to Ambassador William B. Milam is not merely to remember him today, but to carry forward the values and define his life: freedom, democracy, human rights, justice, and the courage to speak the truth. Bill is no longer with us physically, but his ideas, his integrity, his kindness, and his leadership will continue to guide us. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining here today. And thank you, Professor Al-Ilias, Dr. Osman Siddiqui, Ambassador Marsha, obviously Michael Kogelman, a long-time friends of Bill, and Ambassador Farouk Soban for your kind speech and remarks about Ambassador Neil Milam. Thank you so much, and thank you, John.
Thank you, Mushfiq. And with that, we'll conclude today's program. I thank all of those who joined us online. I also thank all of those who sent us online tributes to Bill, which we'll be certain to share with his family. We thank you all for your presence today on a hot Friday afternoon. Again, if you haven't had a chance to sign the condolence book, please do so. If you have longer thoughts you want to share, please feel free to send those to us. If you can stay and join us for refreshments, please do so. And if you have any questions about Right to Freedom, the work that we're doing, you can talk to myself, Deepu, who's in the back, again, Saiful, Fazli, other members of the board, and we'd be happy to include you in our future program. So thank you, and with that, I bid you all farewell. Thank you. Thank you so much. Michael, that was really heartfelt.